Hello guys, this would be kind of like a little special for you all for the last video of the day. We're going to do more of the men's world, so we'll get that going on here. And this will be for the paternity fraud and kind of like the realities that men face almost practically every day, and why I believe that we need to have paternity tests mandatory and all this other stuff, because we all know that it doesn't really hurt anybody involved. It only protects both people involved. So let's get it right on going.
You know what a man's lie is like? A man's lie is like, I was at Tony's house. I'm at Kenny's house. That's a man's lie. A woman's lie is like, it's your baby.
Mr. Parrish's wife cheated on him, so he was always checking to see if his kids looked like him. He was the first man in Bed-Stuy to get a DNA test.
The practice of passing off a pregnancy as somebody else's has been with us since the beginning of time. What the DNA testing is doing for us is bringing us to a point where we can have factual evidence for that.
Women have always been promiscuous and unfaithful.
Here's a big one, fellas. There's a stereotype that men play away, but research shows 1 in 5 children born inside a relationship are not the fathers. In most cases, the man knows nothing about it. That's pretty huge. That's pretty damn huge. And yeah, we have made tremendous strides to proving on whether the kid is yours or not, and that's the reason why it should just be mandatory, because it protects people. Now, a lot of people are going to say, it hurts. Why should people be forced to? Why should if everybody just going about they don't really want it, it's like, what does it matter? It's like it does, because for one, it's not going to change the damage. If anything, it's going to mess the guy up even worse if for instance he doesn't have the paternity test and it comes out that it's not his and it's later down the road. Well, he's already signed up for that stuff and he's already messed up. So again, it's like, it's either way you're messing up. It's either the guy requests a paternity test, shows it's his, and then you have that issue, or you just go down to the line of or you just have the paternity test, it shows that it's his, and there's no issue about it. This saves the man, and potentially the women too as well, from any other kind of damage that would happen, because anything that the guy would get angry for or whatever that happens would most likely happen. I don't know how long the paternity test takes, but if it happens immediately and it's inside the office, if he's not gonna go out and attack the woman if it's not his kid, for one. But at least lets the guy know, and the guy gets to make the decision whether he wants to keep the kid or not. It just gives the man an option, which is a lot of women don't actually want to have the man have an option. It's just the women that can have options, but the men, oh no, sorry, that's not allowed here.
That's why chastity belts were invented. It's also why scientists believe the penis is shaped in the way it is, to remove other men's sperm from women's vaginas before depositing their own. Yet it's typically the man who's painted as a philanderer.
Men cheat for the same reason that dogs lick their balls, because they can. It's part of their biology.
Women cheat. Yeah, but it's completely different.
How?
Because we don't go around randomly attacking any man that we're attracted to.
Speak for yourself.
We're not driven by testosterone.
When women are unfaithful, it tends to be without the use of protection, which makes the whole thing even worse for the man.
And Susan admits she's not sure her husband Nick is the father of her baby. Now, if not, the father could be the man she met on the way to the chip shop after a rare night out on the town.
However, the prevalence of paternity fraud is much greater than most people realise.
Approximately between 10 and 12% we prove that the man who we test is not the father of the child.
That
on average,
really bad.
1 in 10 children are not fathered by the man that appears on their birth certificate. But that figure fluctuates depending on which socioeconomic group you're in. So it goes down to about 1% of children in higher socioeconomic groups, and it can go up to about as high as 30% of children in lower socioeconomic groups.
In the US, about 10 million kids
It just could also mean that in this case that black people would also be affected, and the black community in general is not doing well in terms of the father actually being the biological father here. So it is hitting black communities probably most likely the worst. Just I would say there's a lot of things, but it's also due to black culture as well. I mean, black women need to start understanding to just stop being so. I mean, all women too, but most of black women need to stop being like them German shepherds and whatnot, and have them actively just be, just treat the man well. Like they're the most undesired ethnic group out of the people right now. It's pretty bad, and I think it has everything to do with their actual actions.
Kids are being raised by men that think they're the fathers, but are not. And in Britain, the figure's believed to be around 1 million children.
That means 1 in 20 children, or 1 in every class at school, is not fathered by the man who thinks he's the dad.
Look, if I was a man, and my wife has been on a trip to New York and she comes back and 6 months later she's pregnant, I'm going to DNA test.
There is a presumption in law that husbands are the fathers of children. That's the great presumption of British law. But I think when there's been any kind of anonymous research, statistically, it's incredibly striking. It's quite striking how many husbands are not the biological fathers of their children.
This goes to show: do men cheat more or do women cheat more? Because by looking at this, it's almost giving me the assumption that women are cheating quite often, if not on the equal side of things. And again, this is also going to the fact that women are not being held accountable for their actions. They're not being punished for their actions, so therefore they're just going to keep on doing this. And they're also keep on saying, "Oh, well, just go ahead and go have sex or whatever. Go keep on doing it. Bump the rocks, and make sure that you're doing good. Bump the rocks. Keep doing it. It's okay. The body express your sexuality." And then it's like, okay. Then they do that, and then this ends up happening. Oh, boy.
And if you had a law where every mother was forced to tell, it could be a big can of worms, that.
Robin Baker, a biological psychologist, has studied paternity fraud and its effects. He found that it was a common occurrence and was demonstrably poisonous to family structure and the health and upbringing of children.
This is a great opportunity for us, Peter.
What about Reese, huh? You ever think about that? I mean, you want to take him away from his father?
You may not even be his father.
What?
He might not be yours. There was somebody else. It was just casual, and then there was you.
It has to be the ultimate betrayal a woman can commit against a man, which is then compounded by years of her lying, which can only be described as deeply evil.
But I don't know what's worse. That she's always known, or she's just doing this to get Reese.
Well, I got a paternity test. I haven't taken it yet.
How long does it take?
I don't know. I don't know that I'm going to do it.
You have to.
What if I'm not his father, huh?
It goes back to...
He's not his father. He's still fucked, right? He's still fucked. He still owns all complete liability to the child. The courts will say that he is the child because he's been with the child for so long, and they will also say it's a neglect for the child to not be with the father. So therefore, they'll still allow him, slap him with the X amount of money a month, and he'll be screwed for at least 18 years. So that's how the court system's going to work for him.
Thinking about why families break down, or more generally, why would individuals be unsatisfied with their partners?
Often a man may suspect that a child is not his, but not be certain of it.
A few years later, we were having our first child from my own personal seed. There he was, Earl Jr.
And where a father is doubtful of his paternity, consciously or subconsciously, all sorts of relationship problems are bound to occur. It leads almost inevitably to family breakdown and fatherlessness.
One man, his child had red hair and he had dark hair, and he didn't even like to be seen out with it.
And of course, if the father walks out, we don't know the reason. He's just another example of male irresponsibility, another deadbeat dad.
Parental care is a very costly and valuable resource. We don't expect people to spread it about willy-nilly. We expect them to direct their parental care to their genetic children.
Undoubtedly, because paternity fraud committed by women is so common, it's not legal in this country to get a paternity test without the permission of the mother or a court order.
Okay, so there you go. You can't. As of right now, it shows that you cannot get a paternity test in America without the permission of the mother or a court order. That is now what is reality. Wow. Well, okay. So therefore, even if you want to get a paternity test, you kind of can't because it has to be permission of the mother. That's great.
As well as having the consent of the mother, we also need the child's consent if the child is considered to be Gillick competent, or we use whether a child is at secondary age as some sort of guide as to whether they're competent. So, and it's got to be informed consent, so they must know why they're doing it, and they must know about the confidentiality of the process. There are times when we're approached by the putative father to test a child without the mother's consent, or they may say the mother doesn't want to give consent, in which case we won't do it without the mother's consent.
A man can only find out if his wife cheated on him and had another man's child with her permission. The government heeds advice that this is in the best interests of the child.
Guys, a person may say what is wrong with a man knowing whether he really is the father of a child, but there are very real repercussions for a family when that is done, and the best way of doing it is through the proper legal channels because they can have an enormous impact on the child's life and on siblings' lives.
Why do you require consent from all three parties?
Why?
Yeah. What are the issues involved in making sure that everyone agrees?
It's a terribly important process. It's, I don't know, it seems to go deep to the heart. And it's very important that people are happy with that.
But clearly, in the vast majority of cases, paternity tests strengthen the family and improve outcomes for children because they can deliver good news by removing lingering doubts.
The truth, on the whole, however painful and uncomfortable it is, works better for the human psyche. Deception erodes our confidence in our own judgment and our relationships with other people, and that always has destructive consequences, larger or smaller degrees.
See, that's exactly what I was talking about, right? Why the paternity test should be specifically mandatory. This is why I said there's no actual negative benefits to either party for having a mandatory paternity test. Because not only that, the father gets reassurance that it's actually his kid. The mother will get reassurance that is actually the kid, and if the man's trying to do something to claim that it's not his child or whatever, she can have the paternity test, and then she can be proven right. And I guess this, as psychologist said, it's good for the psyche as well because it eliminates any type of diversion or diversion that prevents them from being able to, psychologically be able to have some type of doubts. So again, the paternity test is being more of a benefit than a negative.
No man ever knows for sure on leaving hospital with his wife and new child that the baby is his. If women were forced to endure this lack of certainty, they'll complain loudly about this terrible abuse of their rights. With such high rates of paternity fraud, DNA testing should be mandatory on the birth of a child, so that men can have the same certainty of parenthood that women enjoy.
A man should know. I think it comes down to a man should know. It's not necessarily about punishing the woman. It's about the knowledge. It's about giving the man full knowledge. And I guess the only way to do that is to have a paternity test at every pregnancy.
I think it's both punishing the woman and letting the father know. I would also go as far as to say it makes women be held accountable. Because put it this way, do you think that when, because since women mostly go off of a social standing, so if you have the social standing, women are gonna want to follow more closer to the social standing because that's just the reality. So if you put the mandatory paternity tests, then that would require women to be more conservative about their body, not have to have sex constantly all over the place, and then it would allow them to have to really think of whether they're going to cheat or not, because if they get pregnant, they the child, and they have a significant other, which, by the way, 50% of women are shown to have a backup partner in their phone or whatever. So therefore, yeah, accountability would be pretty huge, and it has a consequence because the woman can't get that great that monthly payment that she loves.
The government will never make paternity testing routine. It's not interested if the wrong man is enslaved by a woman, and they don't care about the broken family that almost inevitably results. They just want some man, any man, to pay for the upbringing of that child.
She's not my daughter.
Well, she's somebody's daughter, isn't she? And whoever it is, it's my job to find him and to make him support her. That's the law.
Government doesn't even attempt to educate women about their behaviour, nor do they even address it as a massive problem it is. We see domestic violence documentaries vilifying men every other weekend, but no programmes vilifying women for their despicable behaviour. I regard paternity fraud as a far more destructive problem in society than domestic violence. But whereas domestic violence is perpetrated by both sexes, and is mostly instigated by women, paternity fraud is an abuse exclusively committed by women, and it's one of the most evil crimes that exist.
Domestic violence can occur as an understandable loss of control by a man or a woman. But paternity fraud is different. It is calculated abuse of a man for years on end. She lies and cheats him emotionally and financially. She's completely selfish, with no concern for the man or the child. But have you ever seen a news item about the men and children suffering due to paternity fraud? Ever seen a London Underground poster chastising women about it? Ever heard a government minister or police officer tell us about the steps they're taking to tackle paternity fraud? Where is our paternity fraud bill to go with the domestic violence bill? Society much prefers to concentrate on crimes where men can be singled out, even when those same crimes are committed by women.
And we'll continue part 2 later on, But yeah, that's the kind of where it is. All right, guys. This is a huge slap of reality to everybody, but we need this to happen so that way people can so men can see what it's like for us out there and what women do to see what it's out like for men and hold them accountable. All right, guys, that's it for the video. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.